Let's be smart, strategic. Let's redesign the process so the needle comes out of the haystack and gets delivered to you directly on a silver platter. You need to create blocks of time away from the business. You need to do that. If you are living too much in the always on world, he said, every year I take multiple trips where I cannot be reached during those trips. It stresses the business, it stresses my team, and it stresses the outside parties, causing all three of these to grow, to become better.
Maui Mastermind presents the Business Coach Podcast, answering your questions and providing real actionable insights for building a better, stronger, more profitable business without sacrificing your time, life, or freedom anymore.
Well, welcome to another edition of the Business Coach Podcast. I'm your host, David Finkel, and I want to welcome you back this week. So this week, I've had lots of coaching conversations with clients specifically about time use. And so if you go back to one of the earliest episodes we ever did about the time value matrix in episode, I think it was episode 2 or 3, it might have been even episode 1. But if you go back and look at that, I think you're going to find a lot of value. But I want to share with you 4 specific time tactics to help you upgrade your time so that you can create massively more value, a magnitude more value in less time with less effort. And so the first one I want to share with you about is I call it your daily bottom lines. So most people keep a to-do list of some sort. And a to-do list is a good thing, right? We have all these various things that we want to check the box and get all these things done. The problem with the to-do list is it's just one great big never-ending list that just goes on for pages and pages, or in the digital world for finger flicks and finger flicks long. I mean, it just goes on. And hidden within here are low-value tasks, and hidden within there are a few incredibly valuable tasks, but they're hidden within this larger list. And so what I want you to do is I want you to develop the habit that if you've been following the way we teach, we talk about creating your big rocks for the week. Of all the things I could get done this week, what are the 1 or 2 most valuable things I could do for my company this week? And we in the Maui world actually created that into an app. It's part of the Maui app that has that big rock tool in there. At the end of the week, I check in on what my victories were, what my challenges were, what other updates I have. I close out my big rocks for the week, and then I pick my next 1 or 2 big rocks for the next week. And we have that inside of our company, and clients use it in the coaching world so that they can see what their direct report said and share with their colleagues and peers. And it's a useful information way. But that said, at the beginning of each day, what I do on my journal, I still do it paper-based one. I do a bullet journal. Other people could do exactly what I'm about to share with you for those of you that are digital, either analog or digital. This works incredibly well. I look at all the things that I wanted to get done for the week. And I ask myself, of all the things I can get done this week, I put down a 1, 2, and a 3 on my bullet journal. You can do the same thing on a digital. And then I draw a big fat line. And below there, I put all the other tasks that I'm hoping to get done that day. But here's the thing. 1, 2, 3, these are the 3 things that are my bottom lines for the day. Most bottom lines are going to take anywhere from 10, 15 minutes to maybe 2 hours. And so I write in what they are. Now for me, I make sure that I let myself Monday through Friday, if I'm working that week, I have 2 business and 1 personal. Why do I do the personal? Because I want to remind myself that I'm not just an economic engine creating value, but I want to make sure I'm a person who remembers and thinks about my personal life. So usually on the personal side, it might be something like health related. I'm going to have a particular doctor visit, or maybe it's an exercise, or relationally related. I'm going to have a connection time with my wife on a date, or I'm having private one-to-one time with one of my sons. That will commonly be what will be in there. It's the bottom line. Now, I love seeing these boxes get checked, but if they don't, I don't care. I used to think I have to get my to-do list done. And let's be clear, you will never get your to-do list all the way done. And you shouldn't, quite frankly, because as you write your to-do list, some of the things on here should really never be done. They're just not valuable enough. And as I keep adding more, I should use that to-do list just as a catch-all, pull from there each week what I want to get done this week, knowing that I'm still only going to get 70 or 80% of what I would intend to get done this week done. But the key is, and this is what's made clients of ours so extraordinarily successful in the coaching world, in the coaching practice, is I get my bottom lines done. Come heck or high water, by the end of the day, I've checked off that these bottom lines were done. I might only have gotten 3 of these other 5 done, but I got these bottom lines for the day 1 done. So that's the first of the time tactics I want to share with you. Get rid of or pull from your to-do list onto your daily plan. And for me, it's a bullet journal. For you, it might not. For you, it might be a day timer, or for you, it might be some other list that you use a tool digitally on your phone. But make sure that for the day, you know that of all the things you're going to do this day, these are your 1 or 2, possibly 3 bottom lines for the day. And I like to add 1 or 2 business and 1 personal. You can do it differently if you want. That's one time tactic I think is so incredibly important for you. The next one I want to share is, we call it 1, 2, and 3 system. 1, 2, 3 system. Now, you have way too many messaging systems going on. You probably have 10 to 100 emails a day that are coming into you. You probably get messages on Slack channels. You probably get texts from various people. You probably get app messaging from other people. And you have all this stuff coming at you all the time. And if we're not careful, what happens is we have this syndrome I call needle in a haystack. So this is me drawing a haystack. That's my best version of a haystack. And somewhere in this haystack is a needle. And the way most people run their communication is they say, I have to be hyper vigilant about this haystack because somewhere in there coming in might be that mission critical thing. And what happens is they lose all ability to focus on high value stuff because they're constantly checking that stream of messages coming into them for that one needle out of what might be 1,000 messages. So I'll give an example for it. One of our coaching clients, Andrea. Now, Andrea runs a successful retail business. She was a client of ours for a decade plus. She's been with us now. I believe we've been working with Andrea for over 15 years. Her company has grown more and more successful. For her, though, the biggest thing she wanted was not just to grow in terms of profitability, but she really wanted to grow her owner independence. That was the biggest one. And I know this because I had a personal friendship with Andrea after this many years. I mean, I know her quite well. And so I remember this conversation very clearly. I was talking with Andrea and I was talking about this needle and haystack concept. And I said, look, Andrea, right now when you're not working, you're still checking email and you're still checking these other communication streams because you're concerned that in your business, the retail side, an email might come in from a customer of yours or from an outlet of yours that if you miss it, it could cause a lot of harm to the business. You've got other people who are good, but there are things that you're afraid that they won't know how to deal with. And so I said, what you're doing here is you're keeping track of the whole haystack because of the one needle. Rather than trying to monitor the whole haystack so that you can keep an eye on that one needle, let's be smart, strategic. Let's redesign the process so the needle comes out of the haystack and gets delivered to you directly on a silver platter. That way you can forget about the haystack and only pay attention to the hotline, so to speak. You don't have to be vigilant for this 100 or 1,000 messages because of the one that would hurt you to miss. Instead, we redesign the system so that one that would hurt you if you missed comes to you in a stream that you know how to get to it. And when you make that change, it makes your life so incredibly better. So that can be a variety of different ways, but one way of doing that is we call it the 1, 2, 3 system. So in terms of email, when the emails come into you, I want to put on the subject line 1, 2, or 3. 1 stands for this is urgent, important, the recipient has to take action right away. A 2 stands for there's some action they need to take. It matters, but it's not urgent, and they need to handle it in a reasonable period of time, in a day or 2 or 3. A 3 says this is FYI. You need to know what's in here to see if it's relevant for you, but this is for your information. There's no action that I can see that you directly need to take. And so now when I send an email to Joe and I CC Carla, I can put in the subject line 2: Sanderson Project recap and action items. And that way Joe knows he needs to do that. Now if I'm CCing someone else on, I can always put 2 Joe, numeral 2 Joe, and 3 Sylvia, Sanderson Project update and action items. Now Sylvia knows it was 3 for her, so she knows there's no action she needs to take. And what it does is it lets me quickly scan through my inbox or the stream so that I can pull out what matters most. It's the 1, 2, 3 system for emails. It just works really well. And you think about it, probably half or more of the email that you get or send is to internal team members. So make this a standard best practice internally. The third time tactic was in there, which is redesign your haystack to be a hotline. Go from haystack to hotline. A hotline says to somebody, for example, like I do a lot of my communication by audio messages. I tend to be a very auditory person. Yes, I can type out a message, but I will give better clarity, greater depth and detail by an audio message. So there's a particular app that we use for that. Now, I remember I was sending an app to one of our team members, Maggie, and she said, this is right after the book I wrote, Freedom Formula, came out, and the Freedom Formula talked, and they're about this concept, about the time and effort economy versus the value economy. If I'm constantly measuring, or monitoring my haystack to find that needle in there, I am in, by definition, the time and effort economy. But that's ridiculous. We want to be in the value economy. In the time and effort economy, we get paid for hours and effort. We create value that way. In the value economy, we get paid for creating economic value for other people. And so I'd sent Maggie a series of Voxers, and she said, David, I get these various messages, and they're all good. But I want to ask you, how do I know, are you expecting for me to be listening to them in the afternoon, or she's on the East Coast and I'm not, so I might leave her a message at 4 my time, that might be 6 her time. Are you expecting for me to listen to that when I'm picking up my daughter from daycare or something like that? I said, Maggie, first of all, thank you for bringing this up. You are so right about this. I apologize. Please forgive me. Let me do better with communicating. My expectation with a Voxer, the app we're using, this message I'm sending to you, is that consider it just like an email I send you. It's a 2. By definition, it's going to be at most a 2 in terms of priority. So I am expecting that you're going to listen to it in a reasonable period of time. So if you get a message at 4, 5, or 6 in the afternoon or evening, I do not expect for you to listen to it. The next day, somewhere in the first half of the day, I expect for you to listen to it and use it appropriately. If there's ever a case where there's an urgent and important thing, a true one, that I need you to know about, I will send the audio message, but I will also text you saying, Maggie, I just left you a 2-minute, 14-second audio. It is a 1. Please listen to it right away. It's an emergency situation. Now, I need to be careful that if I or other people in my company start abusing this emergency priority stuff, make everything a number 1, I need to have in private an adult conversation and help people see that they're actually causing more issues than they're realizing. So I need to help them adjust or titrate their expectations for what is a 1, 2, and 3. But once you combine that 1, 2, 3 concept with removing the needle from the haystack and going from a haystack to a hotline, it changes the way you and your team do communication. No longer is it acceptable in your company that everyone has to monitor their incoming communication streams like every moment. It's perfectly okay for someone to say, I'm going to use the next 2 hours to use as a focus block to create more value for the company. So first concept was your bottom lines for the day, your 1, 2, or 3 strong line for it, and each day thinking of all the things I could get done today. These are the 2 business and the 1 personal, and that makes it easier visually for me to see, not in this big mass of a to-do list, but pulling those out that this week, this day, these are the 2 most important for me to do today for the business and 1 personal. The personal, I'll leave that to you if you want to do that. I've been doing that now for 15 years, and it's made a difference in my health and in my relationships and in my sense of peace of mind and enjoyment of life, but I'll leave that one to you. But I would tell you that in my world, it's non-negotiable to at least do the 1 or 2 business bottom lines for the day. And then from there, we talked about the 1, 2, 3 system for giving a simple numeric cue, a code that lets people know what they should have, and expectations-wise, do I have to do something with this information? How fast do I need to do something with this information? And then the third was moving from a haystack to a hotline model. Just requires a little bit of thought. The concept is enough for you to apply it in your company. I don't know what technologies you're using for your communication streams, but it could be as simple as going from audio message that's sent through an app that's automatically a 2 or a 3, but if there is a 1 in there, I can make the text, but making sure we don't abuse the hotline, right? The hotline is used for truly urgent and, not or, and important stuff, not just urgent. It needs to be high value and high urgency for that part. And then the final one for your time usage part, and this is important, I believe strongly that you need to create blocks of time away from the business. You need to do that. If you are living too much in the always-on world, and we do live to some degree in the greater world is an always-on world. It's a 24/7, 365 world. But you have to find ways to turn it off. You have to. Because if you don't, let's think about it this way. If you don't, and you live in this 24/7, 365 world, and we don't find ways to tune it out, all these pressures from the outside will keep you from having breakthrough ideas for the business. And I've seen it. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, Jeff, and many of you know who Jeff is. He's my co-author for a book that collectively we wrote called Scale. Came out about a decade ago, and it's been subsequently updated. But Jeff was and is a very, very good business thinker. He's built billion-dollar enterprises before. Very good businessman, and also very, very good at ideation. Ideation is the creation of new ideas, and we were talking about it. It's this living in this world that's compressed where there's no space. We cannot create what Jeff calls hockey stick growth. I've scaled companies fast. I've gone from $1 million in revenues to 10 million in revenues with various businesses quickly. Jeff, on the other hand, has gone from 0 in revenues to $1 billion in revenues, and he's done that in his fastest company. He did it in 4 years. 4 years. So I want you to listen to him. He said, look, we can get organic growth, 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, 50% growth by doing our business better. But if we want to get hockey stick growth, if we want a 10x, 100x, 1,000x over a 5 or a 10-year window, we're not going to get it in this pressure cooker. It requires that for periods we get outside so we can actually have breakthrough ideas coming through ourselves. We have to, for periods, come outside the business, and then we'll go back into the pressure cooker to actually execute. And we talked about that. And I see that so regularly in the companies that we coach that if they're not careful, they get so bombarded by what's going on today that they can't step out and vision for what's going to happen tomorrow. And when you step out here, this is where you create ideas that aren't worth 1x or 2x. They're worth 100x or 1,000x. This is where you create that by outside the business. Inside the business, you create 25% X improvements. You create 100% X improvements. But outside the business, certainly 10x is possible, and 100 and 1,000x is not unheard of with that part. So I'll connect this to one more story I want to share with you. I remember I was on a river raft trip. This is probably 4 or 5 years into my second company. And I was taking a river raft trip. This is pre-kids. I'd just been married for a short time to Heather. We've been together now for 26-ish years or so. And I took a trip with my dad and my brother. And we went in Canada for about a 7 or an 8 day river raft trip. And it was fantastic. It was amazing. And on this river raft trip, I'm in my late 20s at the time, early 30s. And there's a guy there. His name was Roy. Now, first of all, this trip was very expensive. It was the kind of trip that you took when you did river rafting, that they had solar hot showers available for you, and they had wines and foods and plates that were available, and everything was cooked for you, and your stuff was set up. Now, I don't normally camp that way. Normally, especially at that time, but even today, my favorite way of camping is grab a backpack, and I don't go as far as I used to because I don't have the same physical abilities, but if I can get even 2 or 3 or 4 miles away from the trailhead, it's like we went from 1,000 people there down to I might see 3 or 4 people. And that to me is so much better. But for this trip, my dad wanted to do it this way, and so we did it. So it's an expensive trip. Now, why am I saying that? There's a reason for it. So Roy's on this trip, and he runs a business. So what do I know about Roy? I know that Roy and the other roughly 20 people on this trip are financially successful. I know they are because they were spending, whatever it was, $7,000 or $8,000 per person for this trip, $1,000 per day or some number like that. I don't remember exactly, but it was fairly high. And again, this was 25-ish years ago. And so around the campfire one of the nights, I'm talking to Roy and asking him what he's doing and what his business is. And we're having this great conversation. And Roy has built and scaled a very successful commercial real estate empire in San Francisco, California. At the time, I did a lot of real estate myself. I do a lot less today. I just have less interest in it. But back then, I was young and hungry and did, a lot of real estate. I did probably at that stage a couple hundred in single-family house investments that I was a part of. And he had done something I hadn't done, so I was really interested about how he had gone from residential to these larger commercial projects and done them at scale. And one night he said to me, David, I want to tell you the secret, the one secret that made all the difference. Now, looking back, I laugh at this because I don't know if you've ever seen the movie City Slickers. There's Billy Crystal's character in City Slickers talks to the guy on the cow drive on this dude ranch, and the guy's name was Curly. And Curly is this old, grizzled Western hero, and he says, the secret to happiness and a successful life is one thing. And he never tells Billy Crystal what it is. So Roy must have been watching that movie. He says, so David, the secret's one thing. And I'm like, okay, Roy, I'll bite. What's that one thing? He said, I can't tell you. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't tell me? And so he kept this on for like 2 or 3 days. About the third night of this going on, I said, Roy, look, I know you're being playful, but I've had it. What is that one thing? He said, it's this. I said, yes. No, David, it's this. I'm like, look, Roy, we're having a who's on first moment. What do you mean by this? This trip. I said, what do you mean this trip? He said, David, this trip is what allowed me to be as financially and business successful as I've been. I said, Roy, could you, I know you're smiling and it's funny, but I'm not getting it. Can you please help me? And he took a little bit of pity on me, but he shared something so important that I've used since for 25 years. He said, David, because I'm here for this extended time, for this trip, and I'm completely out of contact, it forces my business to be better, and it gives me the space to have new thinking and new ideas that I could never do, because when I'm in the office, I have all these real estate projects, contractors, engineering companies, etc. bombarding me. He said, every year I take multiple trips where I cannot be reached during those trips. It stresses the business, it stresses my team, and it stresses the outside parties, causing all three of these to grow, to become better. And he says for him, David, this allows me to have some space to have some new thinking. He said, by doing that, all my very most successful ideas have come out of times like this. So my fourth time tack is for you to create more value with less time and effort, is you have to have spaces away from this 24/7, 365 world to come out of it, even if it's just for a day or two. And you can't just come out and say, I'll go out for an hour and have my breakthrough idea. It doesn't work that way. But you need to be able to come out for a day or a weekend. Bill Gates does this idea. He has his reading weeks where he moves away from his business activities and he brings his books and he brings his journal. What a great idea. For me, I'm often doing this in nature because some of my best thinking is away from technology, in a wooded place or by a stream or by a lake. And it's made the big difference. Each year for almost, 23 years now, my family and I, first it was just Heather and I, then we started bringing our kids. We go to a camp in Minnesota. It's on a lake. It's a family camp. And, there's no cell service, or actually, technically, there are a few spots on this island that there is cell service, but I avoid those and pretend like there's not. And while I'm there, I spend time with my family, but there's also time that I'm spending in reflection with my journal. I'm spending it taking a walk with my pocket journal, just thinking about new ideas. And it's in these times and spaces that I've created the ideas that aren't 1 unit of time giving me 1 unit of result. They're not even 1 unit of time giving me 10 units of result. They're 1 unit of time giving me 100 or 1,000 units of result. Massive leverage. So these are 4 simple tactics that I encourage you as you upgrade your use of time. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of The Business Coach. As always, I'm going to encourage you, subscribe to the podcast, please. And I'm going to ask for a favor. Here's my favor. Who are 2 other business owners like you that are ambitious to build a better company? A company that's more profitable, creates more value in the market, and is more enjoyable to own. And if you would, it would be a personal favor. I would really appreciate it if you could share the link for this podcast. Give them a text with the link for them to try it out, or send them that email with that. Just say, look, I've gotten good value from it. Here's an episode I really enjoyed. I encourage you to give it a listen. Maybe you'll also get the same kind of value. It would be meaningful for me. Thank you for being even willing to consider it. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I will see you next week on The Business Coach. Bye-bye.